Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another commentary slash review on a video game that I'm going to be reviewing today, which is a classic again, Street Fighter EX2 Plus. Street Fighter EX2 Plus again is another rebranded version of Street Fighter EX2, though I do like the first version of the game. I think it's really good, comes out pretty well. But when I look at EX2 Plus, this one for me is more of a polished, more like tolerable game that I can play. Not saying that EX Plus Alpha wasn't tolerable, I just think that it's more like designed pretty well, more good looking fighting game to date, and I generally think that this is, like, out of the three, one of my favorites. I would literally have to rank EX2 Plus 1, EX Plus Alpha, and then Street Fighter EX3, which I will get into a little bit, but I will say, honestly, not a lot has changed throughout the game. I think that now that we've seen a bit more of the detailing of the video game, I think that there are adding a couple more to the mix. Like XL combos, for example. Players have this animation when whenever you press both buttons you do XL combos, you're put into this weird spacey disco kind of looking vibe to the mix, and you're basically doing more combos. It basically feels like one of those special moves in Street Fighter Alpha series, like custom combos, and to me I think that's one of the most such eye-opening things that I can see. Now, when I got into it the first time, it was difficult, but then eventually I kind of was getting into it thinking, you know what, this is such an easy thing to do now that I know what to press in terms of making really good combos and then adding super moves to it. Obviously they still got the guard breaks as well, so not a lot has changed. And you can also use super cancels, the ability to cancel the super combo into another combo. And I generally think that now adding more characters to the mix was good, especially with Blanca and Vega from Street Fighter 2 was good too. But then with that being said, there wasn't really all the characters that I saw again. Like Alan Snyder, for example, he wasn't even in there. Instead, we added more characters, different Akira characters now. And we add Sharon, who's a female special agent, Hayate, a Japanese swordman. I also think that personally they could have added a couple more to the mix as well. I also think that they shouldn't even get rid of Sakura like that. I think that was a bit of a bad call in my opinion. But I personally think that whenever you add more characters to the mix, I generally think that you should definitely keep the ones that people play the most, but the ones that people are fan favorites as well. That would have been great too. All the 4 hidden characters in the game, such as Shadow Geist and Nanase, Garuda's still in the game as well as the boss character, so that's not a lot to do with it as well. I generally feel like that most of the time I generally have this design where, you know, most video games that I remember playing back in the day had made me get into it and wanted to make video games for myself. Like, this was one of them. Like, this was generally like the most polished 3D game that I've seen back in 1999, and when I go back into it years earlier, because I was only 2 when this game came out, it's kind of more atmospheric with different stages as well, especially with them being in space. Like, this was generally one of the funniest ones in my opinion. And then there was this natured looking stage that they can play as well. Now granted, they don't do story modes in this game, so I'm glad they don't do that. So, you know, it's more just like a to the point game where basically it's more of a good thing to kind of have something that's just like not so complicated to find out, you know. Also, I kind of wanted to talk about characters as well, such as Volcano Rosso, which honestly, you remember JoJo Bizarre's Adventures? Like, people like Volcano Rosso generally looks like a JoJo character. Like, honestly, he's so weird. And Aria reminds me a little bit like she could be put into like Mega Man, rather than just like, you know, your typical like a weird girl that's from like a different sci-fi video game or something like that, you know. And I generally think that it's really cool to have something like that, to have weird expressive characters as well. It's just generally what I personally like the most. And Nanase, going back to her, she's like a regular character with like a weird stuff as well, but at the same time I think it's great that we have something like that, you know, to have a bit more variety to characters, to have a bit more personality to them, though I don't really know much about their personality. I wish we added more to it, you know, a little bit. So at this point you have characters that are fun to play with, and characters that, you know, are usual, and characters that have very funny voiceovers like Sagat with Tiger Shop, which is kind of hilarious. So yeah, with that being said though, I think this one got a bit more like comparison with Fatal Fury's Wild Ambition, which that game is terrible, by the way. I don't really recommend people playing this, but it definitely had some video games that got inspirations from Street Fighter EX2 Plus, and generally I don't think it's done all that well. I don't think it's even the best. In fact, Fatal Fury should have just stayed the way it was at the time whenever it got inspiration from it, because most of the characters in this one look chunky as hell. They look like action figure toys rather than just like actual 3D, well, decent looking, polished, designed looking game, honestly. And generally I can't really think of a better way to kind of explain other things like that. The music in this one is really good. I still prefer the first version of EX Plus Alpha to this one, but it's very vibrant, very chilled, mellow, all that kind of thing. Just feels like, you know, you need that in a fighting game sometimes. It doesn't need to go crazy all the time, you know, something that's more like variety to the mix, and that's what this game has. So yeah, let me know what you guys think about this video game. Is it better than EX Plus Alpha? Because I personally think it is, but I would love to hear your opinions about this game. I think it's a pretty sick game, pretty well put together, pretty well polished, and I generally think this is my favorite. So yeah, thank you guys for listening to the review. I hope you guys are doing well, and yeah, take care. Peace.